With big tech layoffs at historic highs, ChatGPT threatening to replace the jobs of all software engineers, and an imminent recession on the horizon, now is a better time than ever to learn how to code. Hi, my name is Brian Dick. I'm a software engineer at a FAANG company, and this is how I would learn how to code if I were to start over from scratch in 2023.
And how I would learn
This is how I would
exactly
all
what
the
you're
time.
saying.
There are literally thousands of ways you could learn how to code. The reason for this is because there are thousands of routes that make sense. Learning how to code is much like fitness. In fitness, no matter which route you choose on your fitness journey, it's going to have a net benefit for you. But the optimal route is determined by what your end goals are, right? And in tech, this plays out because there's different careers you can choose. You could be a software engineer, a software developer, you could be a data scientist, or just a programmer. And all of these require coding as part of the job, but that's not the main focus of it. So there's other tech stacks, different types of tools that you'll be using, and those are all determined based on which career you're choosing. And then even within there, there's fields. And those fields could be things like web development, mobile development, game tech, game development. There's artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, embedded systems, and many, many more, all of which have their own unique set of skills that you need to learn. And because of that, I'm not here to give you an optimized route for each of these different fields. Instead, I want to give you a general list of rules for which order you need to learn things in to be able to get a solid career started in tech. But first, before we get into that, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Regardless of which career and field you go with, there are 5 basic steps that you need to take in order to know how to code. Step 1 is to understand the basics of programming. The basics of programming is simply learning a single language at the most basic level, starting with the Hello World program that everybody writes for their first program, moving on through the variables, conditional statements, loops, etc. You don't need to know everything about a language to be able to say that you know the basics of programming, but you should at least know enough that if you try to Google how to do something in language X and you find a solution online, you should be able to read that solution and have a general idea of what they're trying to do. Step number 2, interview problems. Now this is not really like a whole step. You're not going to go into a full detailed, I do nothing but work on interview problems. No, I'm a strong believer that as soon as you know the basics of programming, you should start working on interview problems so that you're starting to already think about the job interview process for whether that's for internships, low-level positions that you're going to be able to learn on the job, or whatever. It's a good skill to start building early on in your programming journey. And I recommend as soon as you're able to get past that basic level of programming, you should start trying to do 1 to 2 problems a week, and then eventually work your way up to doing about 4 a week if you can. Step 3. Data structures and algorithms. Data structures and algorithms go over space and time complexities. These are very important in the world of software because it'll determine which tools are best for a particular job. You may have multiple solutions to a single problem, but if you can improve your space or time complexity, you can save a lot of money for your business. This is what separates a good developer from a great one. Step 4, pick your path. Now, up until now, the steps are more or less the same regardless of which field you want to go into. Now is the time to figure out what field you want to go into, learn what that technology stack looks like most commonly, and go and learn that. Don't stress out about this too much though, because regardless of what you pick, as long as you're still building up those core foundations of your coding journey, you should be able to fluidly change in the future with a little bit of extra work. Step number 5, making projects. Of course, it's never too soon to start making your own projects. But once you finish the first 4 steps, this is where you really want to start focusing on those projects. A personal project is something that you get to put on your resume. It becomes a talking point or something that you can even bring up and show that, hey, look, I actually know what I'm doing. So building projects are good to do at every stage of your coding journey. But once you have those first 4 down, the final step is to just do as many personal projects as possible to build up that experience before you have the first job. Now that you have the 5 general rules for how to learn how to code, Let me give you the two basic routes that I would take if I were doing it again. And I really think it's determined primarily based on the stage of life you're in. So if you are a child, when I say child, I don't mean actual child. You are a teenager to 20-something-year-old, you have no four-year degree, and you've got enough time to be able to make a time commitment here, I would go to college.
Torches! Get your torches! Pitchforks! Can't be an angry mob without pitchforks!
I know. So unpopular these days to recommend going to college and paying all that money to learn something you can learn perfectly free online. I know, I used to be that person. But in all honesty, going to college is the most consistent route to being able to get into anywhere in tech. It's just simply is. Going to college gives you a lot of benefits that you cannot get learning on your own. Number one, you get access to all of these student internships that pay anywhere from $25 to $65 an hour. And these internships also often include a cost of living voucher. If you have to commute, like if you are not in the same state, you have to go somewhere else for that job, you get to get a cost of living voucher, which then will pay you even more money on top of the money that they're already paying you. It's fantastic. In addition to just the internships, you could do student aids, where you're working for the teacher to be helping out with like algorithms or a data structures class, which then gives you an advantage when it comes to all of those job interviews and makes you really stand out. In addition to that, you're surrounded by other people that are going to be working in tech, and those people are going to be working for other companies. And then sometimes you're going to want to reach out to them. They get a sweet job at a FAANG company that you want to work at, and be like, "Hey, Alex, you think you could give me that sweet recommendation letter?" Oh, cool. And that is how you advance your career the fastest possible. You find somebody else that did it first. No, but like seriously, it really is a huge advantage to be able to build up that network while you're still in school. And then that gives you recommendations that lets you leverage up your career a lot faster. In addition to all of that, you get access to be able to try multiple different fields. You could take a class on robotics, and you get a really cool project with that you get put on your resume. You might go in to go, oh, I want to take a web development course, and you take a semester working on a big website with a team of people, and then you get that little piece to add to your resume. And then maybe you want to take a game development class, and you build out a game with a group of artists and other software people and musicians and all this other stuff, and you get together and you build something really cool and unique. And that is the type of projects that are great on the resume. And then you can figure out which field you actually want to go into a lot easier with a lot lower risk. All the while, you could be taking internships that allow you to cash flow the college experience. Now, I'm not recommending you take out student loans to go to school, and definitely don't go and pay out-of-state tuition unless you just have the money that you want to blow. Don't make financially poor decisions just to go to school to get that piece of paper. But there are mature ways that you can actually cash flow college, not go into debt, and end up in the best possible situation. If you want me to make a video on how to cash flow college, make sure to leave that in the comment section below, and I will make one in the future. It's very hard to ignore the fact that 93% of all software developers have at least a bachelor's degree, and 20% have at least a master's degree. That is very hard to get over, meaning that only 7% have less than a bachelor's degree that work in industry. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but it is much more rare than I feel like YouTube makes it seem. Okay, so I gave you a lot of reasons for why there's an advantage to going to school for computer science. And there's a lot of positives going that route. But let's say you came to me and you're like, hey, Brian, look, I'm 40 years old. I'm not looking at going back to school. I feel like I'd be so out of a place. Or you say to me that you already have a 4-year degree and you don't want a second one. That makes sense. That's reasonable. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably go the self-taught route. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The self-taught route is definitively the more difficult route to take. It's doable, but it's hard. Again, 93% have some kind of degree, But some of those are not in computer science. It could be in something else, and they are self-taught developers, but they have a degree in something else. So it makes sense. Now, if you're in that category, just follow the steps that I listed up below. Step 1 would be learn the basics of programming. There's actually a Udemy course that, or actually I think it's edX course that I took myself just to see what it's about. And it's called CS50. It's a Harvard Intro to Programming course, effectively. And it is actually really well put together, completely free to use. I'll leave a link below. And I think that is probably the best online resource to learn the basics of programming. It goes over a little bit of everything, gives you a little bit of background, a little bit deeper knowledge than just like a simple free coding bootcamp class. But it's a very well put together course, and I would highly, highly recommend starting there for your step 1. Step 2, go to LeetCode or HackerRank and start working on the basic interview problems, because those are going to start coming up. Again, like I said in the steps portion, 1 to 2 a week for starting out, working your way up to like 4 a week. I think that's more than sufficient for learning how to hit these interview problems. Step number 3 would be finding a way to learn your data structures and algorithms. Unfortunately, I haven't found a Udemy or edX course that covers algorithms and data structures. I might take one in the future or 2 in the future to find a good one for testing, just so I know for my audience where to point them to. And if I do ever do that, I'll leave a link in the description below for that as well. But just as of right now, just go to the Udemy, type in data structures and algorithms, find a course that's highly rated and has some good feedback on it, and go ahead and take that. These things are concepts more than specific implementations, so it's usually pretty good for a long time. It doesn't get outdated very often. Step number 4 would be picking that specific field that you want to go into. And for this, I would also go to Udemy, look up game dev, web dev, whatever specific field you're wanting to go into. Find a good course on there. Now this one, time sensitivity is a bit more noticeable. Like web dev stacks, for example, change every 3 to 4 years. And you might be wanting to look for a more modern one than an older one, but you still want to find something that has good reviews. It might cost $100 to $200 to get through one of these courses, but I feel like the value you can extract out of these Udemy courses are very, very high, and they'll kind of prepare you for that field. And then step 5 would be to start making some projects with that specific field. So if you are interested in web development, start making some websites. A small website, a medium-sized website, and a large website. If you're into mobile development, start making some apps on Android and iOS. Be able to get it to a point where it's publishable so that it's something that you can show and bring up in an interview. And if you can, especially if you're able to pull out your phone and be like, hey, go to blah, 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 here's my website or whatever, that looks really, really good in an interview process. Now, again, there's some disadvantages to this. You're not going to have that degree in computer science. A person that went to school for computer science is probably going to have more projects and more diverse array of projects than if you just went to the self-taught route. The advantages here, it's much cheaper, but that's really all you get. Now, I will say your entry point into the industry is probably going to be a little bit lower than the person with a computer science degree. In general, you're going to be taking one of those lower entry-level positions first, whereas a person coming out of college is probably going to get a higher entry-level position to start off with. But if you're really looking at the career 10 years down the line, you're probably going to be more or less in the same position because you'll have enough experience built up over the years that the degree is kind of meaningless. But it is a warning that that first entry-level position might be a little underpaid compared to your graduate counterparts. This is just my 2 cents looking back at it in retrospect, having the benefit of hindsight, how I would do it if I were going back today. If you have any questions or anything in this video that you'd like a specific video talking about more in depth, be sure to leave that in the comment section below. And I think that's all. Bye.